chain, would there be an interoperability protocol where you see a game operating across chain and assets can go over different chains? Or do you think that there will be this primary chain that the game will be latching on? It could be their own chain that they develop, kind of like what Flow did or Xe did, or they use other chains as well, like Polygon or Arbitrum, but that will bring you to the risk of shared resources with other games and that will impact user experience. How do you see the picture of a cross-chain environment coming in? I think Jerome has something to say because you guys have moved on where's changed, right? Yeah. Go and start with you. Yeah.
Yeah, we started off on Ethereum, and we decided to launch the game itself on Polygon because we knew that we were going to be heavy block space consumer. So the initial game of Cometh ran from February to October this year. Since October, it has been put on pause for refactoring of the infrastructure. So considering new chains, considering other scalability solution, because very basically, the cost in terms of dollars that the players had to spend to play was about 1/10 of a cent when in the early days. And with the pump of Matic, the success that Polygon had, and the consumption of other dApps, we raised up to 15 cents, 20 cents, 30 cents sometimes. So at some points you end up in this situation where you are delivering some content, you are delivering some fun, but this fun and content is only factored by the quality of the production and how much effort you put in the first iteration of the game. So it becomes a question for the players whether they want to play to have fun and play to earn something, and they compare that with how much they pay. So 1/10 of a cent is super fine. People don't really care. A couple of cents or 10 cents, people start to say, well, I'm getting bored, or I'm not getting as much as I would like to out of this. So this is where you really have to ask yourself a question, like how much of the blockchain resources you're using. And so to come back to your questions in a more precise way, it's a constant struggle when you have a game to choose the right chain in terms of fees that your users are going to pay in the early days and in the late days, and how much players you're going to find on those chains. Like if you go on Binance, there are lots of users. If you go on Ethereum, there are lots of users. If you go on, CoinGecko chain, if it launched tomorrow, it will probably have a lot of users. If a new chain is launched tomorrow with a shady team that nobody knows about, with no marketing, you probably won't have anyone there. So I think it's important for future game developers to consider carefully where they are going to launch their game in terms of fees, but also where they're going to consider launching their NFTs in terms of primary existence. We minted on Ethereum because it's the oldest chain. It's the chain that everybody knows and how to use, and it's also the chain that every side chain or every miners chain are going to connect to. So you have a good certainty that your NFTs are going to be interoperable with other chains. Mm-hmm. And now, if you're consuming a lot of resources, you should definitely consider having your own scalability solution, whether it is an optimistic rollup, a ZK rollup, or even your own chain like Axie Infinity or Flow did. It allows you to run your own infrastructure, and also to not give away that much value to the infrastructure owner. But then you kind of get out of the blockchain mentality, and you can be considered a custodian for the funds on your chain if you are the only one on your chain. So it's a difficult question, and I believe that in the future we'll see major games organizing themselves around an ecosystem of other games on specific chains, on specific dedicated chains, whether they be Ethereum shards or dedicated rollups or dedicated chain, and eventually more minor game or lightweight game in terms of blockchain usage, cherry hopping from multiple chain and having multiple instances.
Yeah, I think that's a good advice, like trade-offs, and also like if you're starting out, you want to pick the right chain to bootstrap and then go from there. And I think I wanted to move on to Robbie as well. You obviously there's a lot of games under your portfolio, and I'm sure you will wish to look for a day where all the games will interoperate. And I'm sure you're thinking about cross-chain to some extent. So what's your take on the current state, and would that be the future that you foresee? Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I think we're very active proponents of a multi-chain ecosystem. We think it's very healthy for the community, and people are always making new innovations, and who knows what kinds of incredible things will come out of new blockchains we have yet to see. So we actively encourage this kind of multi-chain environment. I think the important thing from a player or a user's perspective is whether their assets that they own are going to be usable where they want to use them. So I think building bridges between chains so that people can bridge their assets is very important. And that either is incumbent on us as a game creator or on third parties who decide that they're in the business of building bridges and facilitating that for people who make games and applications. But I do think that when considering where you want to build your game, I do think that the decision is technical decisions are part of the consideration, but I think it's also about product market fit and thinking about your audience and what kind of an audience and community is present on a chain that you decide to build on as well. Because obviously we in gaming are trying to bring more users into blockchain generally through games. But it's also important to consider who's already here on the blockchain, because those are going to be the core users for the near term.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think spot on. Like a lot of the games that we see today are pretty much bootstrapped by the crypto natives, and then it's spread out from there. And depending on the chain you're on, you may get some mainstream adoption coming in depending on what's their first experience with crypto. It's quite unlikely for the mainstream audience to experience Ethereum right now. So obviously, if you're choosing that, then you are targeting the native. I think I would like to move on to another theme, which is competition against traditional game publishers. I think we probably can already safely say that blockchain gaming has has already worked and is catching the attention of every game publisher. Like if you don't have a blockchain strategy or play to earn strategy, then I don't know whether your game will last in the next 3 to 5 years, because there's just so much competition coming in. With regards to you guys running blockchain first games, do you see this as a potential threat or a problem where traditional games are looking into this, and potentially if you're playing a PlayStation 4 game and suddenly you can start moving your assets from those games and play to earn, or do you not see that as a potential problem, and you guys can focus on the area that you're in with regards to competition against these conventional games out there?
Cool. Do you want to take this one, Aaron? Otherwise, I'm happy to jump in, but I don't want to.
Sure. I think that the thing for us is we're absolutely rapt if there's going to be new competition come in, especially from big studios, because it'll do nothing but bring attention to the space. And I think the point is that eventually, whether it's traditional AAA publishers or people that are bootstrapping now, eventually there'll be AAA games that are built on the back of blockchain technology. So at some point it's going to be done, and it's going to be done by someone. And the question is, who will do it the best? And there's really two sides of it. There's the people that have, multi-billion-dollar studios backing them that have already been shown to be able to make good games, but have also been shown to not really have much understanding of the way that blockchain can interact with those titles. And maybe they have a bit of a hesitancy to do that just purely because if they don't fully integrate it in a decentralized finance way, it sort of loses a bit of the luster of what you can actually accomplish with those games. So there's some challenges for them. And then there's also challenges for blockchain developers that are starting up now to be able to build something that people truly want to play and that actually has utility, whether it be in terms of connecting people socially or just giving people the entertainment that they're used to experiencing. So for us, the more that they attempt, in our opinion, the more that they'll shine light on good projects, which we think that we will be, and we think that the good projects will sort of rise to the top, at which point it'll do nothing but positive things. And if there is another game out there or a company that's already in the market that's able to make that transition and do it well, then good on them. And it'll be fantastic to be able to compete with them on a level playing field one day.
Yeah, Robbie, you want to go ahead?
Sorry, I was just going to add one thing to Aaron's. I completely agree, actually, with everything you said. The only thing I would also add to that is that I feel like, one of the values that we as a blockchain game community all embrace is very much one of openness, because that's part of the open source movement. And I think that, if anything, our biggest concern when it comes to competitive environment is that very large players, whether they're game companies or more likely than not, let's just say large social media companies, may decide that they try to build a blockchain that's not as open as other blockchains, and not as compatible with other standards, and try to encourage the use of their blockchain as a standard as opposed to embracing openness. I think that would be our primary concern.
Yeah, trying to find a parallel in history of entertainment. I had a fun discussion with an industry professional on is blockchain coming to gaming having the same impact as sound coming to cinema and filmmaking. Like, hey, now we have blockchain, so we can tell stories differently. We can have much more interaction and so on. Mm-hmm. And coming back from that discussion, I kind of feel it's not going to be the same scenario, but much more of a scenario between the music industry and the internet. Suddenly you have ways to create a digital duplicate of the thing, and the sense of ownership of a game is going to change completely, as much as the sense of ownership has changed completely when it comes to music. You used to buy a lot of CDs, you used to go to a lot of concerts, you used to cherish and praise large artists that had super high production. But there's a good chance that what blockchain is going to bring is creating licenses that are much more long-lasting on a smaller community with higher impact. And the movement is going to be embraced, I think, by the big studios. They're too intelligent to miss this event, and we already see a major actor like Ubisoft in France doing some tryouts there. We see other major actors bringing in money to VC funds specialized in blockchain, being active with that. And I guess Animoca is part of the movement as well now. So it's great that this movement is ongoing, and it's going to probably be done in a very fruitful way.
Yeah, I think also like just to summarize it, I think I'm quite bullish as well with crypto native first blockchain games, because if you look at history, during the social game era, you hardly see big titles like taking a lead in that space. And then when you move to mobile games, the Game Loft, the Rovio, the Angry Birds, the Clash of Clans, they're all sort of like spun up new companies rather than big titles coming in. So I think the same will be true for crypto as well. Like you guys understand the space best, and that could be the playing field that new industries, new companies are born that would take on this helm and turn into big giants and big companies. Yeah, I guess like just one last theme to talk about, which goes back to play to earn again, is regarding the impact of play to earn. We saw how again, drawing back to Axie Infinity, how they have impacted lives in Philippines, and same is true with the other play to earn games are probably also poised to be the same. There will be new economies being created for different parts of the world. And how would this affect the real world economy, in the sense that what if play to earn becomes so profitable that everybody starts wanting to play a game and not wanting to do work in real life? Like, do you think that will be a situation, or rather there will be a disruption in the real world economy? Like, would that ever, does those kind of questions cross your mind when you're building a successful play to earn game? Noting that having a good play to earn game definitely helps change people's life as well. So I think it's a little bit of a subjective question, but just wondering, like, since you guys spend a lot of time in games, do you ask yourself this kind of questions?
Yeah, I don't think about it too much, but I mean, obviously it's going to, if it's a significant enough portion of the economy goes to be playing to earn instead of doing other types of labor, then it'll raise the price of those other types of labor. That'll literally be it. So I guess if that's a good thing to raise up minimum wage in certain places, then I guess that's definitely a positive thing, but it's certainly not the major driver for us when making the game in determining our decision making.
Oh, I totally agree with Aaron on this. When you ask, is it the kind of question you ask yourself when you're building a successful game? Like we are constantly asking ourselves how to build a successful game, how to make sure that this game is going to be successful. So we measure success in various ways, for sure. Trying to alienate people and getting them to be super addicted and leaving their job to play a game and making bad financial decisions or life-changing, impactful decisions in a bad way in our game would be very, very destructive and very bad for us, for our reputation in our community, for the value that the blockchain tried to bring to the world. So I completely agree with Aaron on the fact that if people are playing a game and making some revenue out of the game, and it's helping them have a better life overall and raise the minimum wage or lower the unemployment barrier, that's absolutely great. And that's it's important society decision that or society discussion that everybody is having in developed countries as well. Like, do we want to let people play instead of going to work? Well, if there's not even enough work for everyone, what about letting people work in the game? And if they can have fun while playing, that's even greater.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if we think about so-called traditional games, they are very extractive. I mean, I come from the free-to-play casual mobile game business, where we make most of our money on the basis that a very small percentage of the players subsidize the cost of playing for everybody else. And in a play-to-earn game, you're basically trying to recreate that scenario where you're able to provide a service to everybody, regardless of whether they have a lot of money and little time, or they have a lot of time and little money. But because you are essentially facilitating the interaction directly between the players, it's much more fair to the players, because everybody is able to get value out of the economy in proportion to the input that they put into the economy. And we just provide that environment. And that, honestly, I think as a game developer, makes me much more satisfied about the kind of products that we can build, because I feel like, our success will be ultimately the results of how we treat our community, and they will facilitate that success if they're happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, spot on. Like I think the world is definitely going to rebalance. The economy will rebalance itself. Like as Alan mentioned, like if the real world economy is overheating and people move over to play to earn, and if it overheat, it will balance back. And I think the net result is everyone should benefit from playing the game, and rather it being extractive, and that's the thesis for blockchain gaming. So I think we were almost running out of time, and I thought of a good way to wrap it up is just to pick your brain on what do you think the blockchain gaming scene is going to be like in 2022. I think we are not very far from it, but what do you think excites you with 2022? Like, do you have any high hopes or any sort of prediction that you think will happen, and you're steering your game towards that direction? Like, what is on top of your mind to gear up for next year? Maybe we can start with Robbie, and then Jerome and Aaron. Yeah.
Sure. From our end, I guess we're very excited by the sandbox. We're launching our alpha finally in about 10 days. So we're excited and terrified and enthusiastic in all equal measures. So looking forward to that. But I think as an industry, in the aggregate, I'm most excited by the fact that all of the interest and capital and everything that went into this industry at the beginning of 2021 will start to bear fruit in products that we'll see come to market in 2022. So I think you'll see an explosion of products coming out. Whereas at this moment in time, we still all have to agree that there are still relatively few fully developed blockchain games out there, because it takes a while to make a good game. So I'm most excited to see what everybody who's been hoovering up all the venture capital earlier this year will come to market